This is it, man. A few more seconds to showtime.
Two different levels, I cannot relate.
The more I read, the more I learned, the more I understood, this was not a tool. This was a revolution.
Gotta let people know Bitcoin is money. It's not a commodity. It's not digital capital. It's not a digital gold. It's money. We gotta use it that way.
Family close, put in work and secure the bag and then take it back to my foes.
The Bitcoin way educates and empowers every individual on how to regain full control over their wealth, how to protect it, and how to get it right the first time, so that there's no mistakes and no anxiety in any stage of that process.
I think there are two important things that people should understand about self-custody. First of all is that it is critical. You only hold your wealth if you take 100% self-custody. In anything else, you're taking on counterparty risk. You're exposing yourself to government intervention, regulations, failed businesses, and so forth. But the second and another very fundamentally important thing about self-custody is that anybody can do it. It's a new set of skills, but it's not that complicated. You just need the right teacher to help walk you through the process to do it correctly the first time.
For once, we have an asset that you can truly own yourself, and it's critical to take ownership over this asset to maintain its power and to ensure that you are in charge of your money and your money doesn't get eaten up by inflation or any other thing that's happening around the world.
Self-custody is so important because the whole idea around Bitcoin is to move away from counterparty risk, to move away from centralization. And if you're storing your Bitcoin with counterparties, you're just delaying the real adoption of Bitcoin, where we separate money and state and have a better world. So if you really want to be a part of the change, your Bitcoin should be truly yours. It shouldn't be shared with anyone, and it should be used. You shouldn't be afraid to use your Bitcoin. The Bitcoin only will become what it is supposed to become if you really use it and know how to use it, more importantly, not just to store it.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bitcoin Way Live. Brandon Gentile is joining us today. Greer is filling in for Tony, so we've got a star-studded cast. Guys, how you doing?
Excellent.
Good.
Absolutely excellent. Thanks for having me here, boys.
Yeah, man. I've been having some Greer knows this because we recorded something this morning, but I've been having some technical difficulties. So I've been on in a hotspot. So hopefully you continue to see me throughout the duration of this episode. But if I drop off, you guys carry the torch, okay?
Oh yeah, we'll have plenty to say about you while you're not here.
I'm sure you will. It's recorded though. I can go back and watch this later.
Touche.
So you better watch that. Hey, Greer's UTXO, is that a bird flip hat?
Yeah, this is a bird flip hat. You know, my goal is, you got the bird flip on the side here. The goal is to sell low OPSEC Bitcoin gear, birdflip.xyz. So yeah, this is the new one that we added to the shop, I think last week.
Dude, it's awesome. I think my favorite right now is your having fun staying poor hat.
Oh, I've got that. You want to see that?
Go grab it. Go grab it. Yeah.
Give me a second. Let me reach. Here you go.
So good, man.
That's awesome.
Every bear market needs a bear market hat. And yeah, if you're a Bitcoiner like me, we're having fun staying poor. It's no big deal.
Dude, since we're going hats, lids, I might have to go my USA Hockey Bitcoin hat.
There you go.
Let's go.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? I'll swap out my hats here. I got bird flip.
Yeah.
Oh,
there it is. That is sharp.
Let's go.
I think I got to go backwards though, guys. It's my staple. So I'll stick the bird flip here for the man himself. Okay, guys, we've got some comments coming in. We've got, bird flip, you're commenting on our own video. We've got our friend Matthew Kappa. Good evening, Bitcoiners. Someone says Greer is here.
Yes,
that's
true.
He said, our friend John says that's the only UTXOs that Greer is selling. Is he right, or are you dumping Greer?
No, man, I'm holding. I'm still up, actually, now that I think about it. I was going to say I'm in a loss, but no, for the most part, I'm still up. But Yeah, no, you can't sell your Bitcoin. You got to hold on to it. I think we're seeing tons of FUD, tons of fear. They're shaking out the plebs, but the real story here is that everybody wants Bitcoin, except Joe Schmo, who's too afraid. So can't be that guy.
Yeah, I have no idea what my average cost basis is at this point. I can't be very far ahead, that's for sure. I came in 22. So I got some of the bottoms, like the $16,000 Bitcoin, but I was buying it like, I don't know, 40 or what, wherever it was kind of hanging out for a lot of that year. So
yeah, I bought a lot in the 50s.
A lot in the 50s. Okay. Oh, so yeah. Yes, you're up, a little bit if that were to be your cost basis.
Yeah. Just don't consider what the inflation rate is. That's the secret.
Yeah, man. Since 22, I'm screwed with inflation.
The important part is no one can take it. No one can take it. It's priceless.
That's right, man.
Doesn't matter.
I'm so poor I can't even pay attention. Got a happy Friday, gents. Guys, thank you all for being here, for joining. Keep the chat active. We would love to answer questions or comment on any sort of commentary that you'd like to provide. But Brandon, tell us what you've been up to lately, man. It's been a minute since you and I have caught up.
Yeah, I know. It's been a couple weeks or so. I was actually just watching our episode, the uncensored episode, again. I think I watched it twice. I just watched it again this past week. So I kind of feel like I saw you guys, but I get to catch some of your guys' content here and there, and I watched that one again. And great comments in there. So we need more of that. But yeah, just doing some live streams. Similar stuff to this. A lot of good collaborations going on in the Bitcoin space. Way more in the last 6 months than I've ever seen, and just in Bitcoin in general. And I think that it's the signaling of a new era, I think, to a degree, because in the future, we're going to have decentralized schooling, separation of school and state, education state, separation of money and state. All these things are coming, whether people know it or not, it doesn't matter. Like, it's happening. The younger generation is not putting up with it. So here we are, and we're at the very edge of that, the bleeding edge, and doing a lot of these things and standing together. So I'm just excited about the collaborations that have been going on. I mean, the stuff we've been doing together for the last year. BTC Sessions has a big group doing stuff together. Rob and some guys overseas, Robin Sear and Bram, and just like a lot of stuff that's going on. So really focused on that. Obviously doing podcasts, interviewing people in the Bitcoin space, and that's a big thing. And then working on some, book stuff in the background, just for, separation of money and state. Again, Revolutionary War and Bitcoin, just stuff like that. So I just absolutely love where we're at in the Bitcoin space, and it's great when there's a bunch of this FUD and the price is dropping, because it really lets you work and get down to the basics, which is my favorite time. So just very excited.
Be a bull in a bear market. I think that's the motto here. Hey, we got someone who asked. They said, in your line of business, do you find it's hard to orange pill people during a bear market, especially if it's their first drawdown? Be curious to hear your guys' opinions on this.
Absolutely. I think the bear market is best for the plebs. It's for the people who understand what Bitcoin is. This is great. You're buying Bitcoin at lower prices. Yes, everybody wants it to go up, but Bitcoin coming back and giving people a chance to buy it at 65, 64, maybe we'll go to 60 again, or who knows, even in the 50s. This gives everybody another chance to find out what it is. And that's what we want. We don't want Bitcoin to be just for the elites and then just for the plebs who got in, in 2020 or something, or earlier. Like, we want Bitcoin for everyone. And to me, this is, yes, it's hard to orange pill people. Everybody knows that Bitcoin's volatile. Too many people, I had people say, oh, Epstein created Bitcoin. I'm sure we all have stories and anecdotes about that, and I think that's fine. It's a good place for people to start. The money increasing, Bitcoin going up in value, that's what draws people in. And I think, you come for the greed, you stay for the revolution, and hopefully that's the path that most people take. Bitcoin will make you wealthy eventually. Maybe if you got in last year, you hate it and you want to get out, or you bought in the 80s or 90s and you're just waiting it to go back up so you can sell it. But Bitcoin is not something that you trade. It's not something you sell. This is something you hold on to for life, and forget about what your stacking goal is. Just buy regularly and zoom out. If you commit to buying Bitcoin for the next 10 years, it doesn't matter what the price is today. So I think when you're helping people understand what Bitcoin is, The first thing is why does it exist in the first place? What is it replacing? If our money is no good anymore, if the dollars are no good, do we have an alternative? And there are thousands of alternatives that you can go and explore. Bitcoin's the best one. I think that you have the smartest people building on Bitcoin, and then zoom out and look at the institutions, the companies, the cash apps of the world. Everyone's making Bitcoin easier to onboard, whether you're a bank, and I know we don't love that, but whether you're an institution, whether you are a business owner, like Bitcoin is the place to be. Price will catch up eventually. This is your chance to stack while it's, at pretty decent prices. I mean, historically, 65 grand for one Bitcoin, that's a ton. But, coming off of 126, this is great. I love a sale.
I agree with that. I've actually got an interesting story about this because I've said before on the podcast that I'm trying to orange pill my local farmer right now. And I got a text from him this morning. He said, so here are my thoughts after listening and all. I'm happy to set up an account between a wallet, I think is what he's referring to, between now and summer. I'm still very skeptical, but clearly it's working for some folks, so we can start, all caps, slow. So I don't know if he's looking at I don't get the sense that this is a guy who's like looking at price and he sees we're in a bear market or something like that. I know a lot of people are watching Fox Business or whatever, and they're seeing the price is down, or they're looking at charts. But I think for a lot of people, they probably aren't even aware that we're in a bear market. If you're a family member of a Bitcoiner, you're probably more acutely aware that we're in a bear market because you're keeping an eye on, has Michael been right about this or is he wrong about this? And you keep tabs or whatever. But I think a lot of people just don't even know. Brandon, hey, instead of answering that question, I want you to answer this one because I think it's related. Do you guys think it's even possible for the bears to keep Bitcoin down in perpetuity?
No.
Good question.
No. Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, that's the whole, that's the differentiator between gold and silver and Bitcoin. The thing that woke me up 15 years ago, again, is realizing once I left university, which had taught me nothing in school for, 16 years I was in school, government run schooling, and I didn't learn anything about money. So I had to start studying, reading Creature from Jekyll Island, reading about gold and silver, reading about, oh my gosh, this is just a claim check. Dollars, paper is a claim check, just like you go take your suit to the dry cleaner and they give you a little receipt that says, hey, come back, and then we'll give you the actual thing. That's what dollars are. It's an IOU. It's a claim check on the actual money. And this has been completely eroded, took it out of the textbooks 50 years ago once we went off the gold standard. Obviously in 1913, 14, when the Federal Reserve comes in, this whole thing's been bastardized. Been going on for thousands of years of like gold, the kings melting down the coins and clipping coins. So you have to go back to these fundamental places in order to understand what's going on. But coming back, zooming back to this, so that woke me up to, oh my gosh, they're playing with us. This is the political red versus blue. They get us all fighting each other in the Coliseum when the real game's going on in the Treasury. And they're clipping the coins, melting them down, and stealing through inflation without asking you. And so with gold and silver, you can do this because no one can audit any of it. No one has any idea how many coins there are, how many bars there are. They don't know where they are. Again, we were told, a year ago, we're going to get Fort Knox. We're going to, what's in there? What's in the vaults all across the world? What's in the private vaults? What's in the banking? We don't know. And you can never know. It's impossible to audit. And even if you have the gold and you have found it, you got to trust someone to do the auditing, to assay it, and take all the time, energy, capital, manpower, and trust that's needed to do that. And do we think that adversaries are going to trust each other all of a sudden? And so this is where the suppression comes in. They can just do endless claims or sell endless paper on gold and silver because no one can actually audit it. And we know JP Morgan, Chase, all these banks have paid billions in fines over the decades for suppressing the price and selling paper, et cetera, derivatives on top of gold and silver. So
Brandon, you're cutting out a bit. Is he doing that for you?
Yeah, we're losing him. So I think while we wait for him, what I would say is, yeah, they can suppress the price, but not forever. Bitcoin has a limited supply.
Someone here said, Brandon, you back?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. So Cabo Brian said, don't think they have such centralized control, organized control of paper Bitcoin like Jamie Dimon and silver. So no, it'll pop again like a volcano. I think it's only a matter of time. Right. I guess the comment I would make though is there are a lot of people who are in Bitcoin and they're watching the price chart. First of all, way too much, I think. I think ultimately it goes up. The one thing I'm going to say here is if you are not in self-custody, 100% self-custody, and you are waiting for the price to pop, you are part of the problem. Because the minute that we can demonstrate and verify our own UTXOs and that we don't have to wonder if they're, throwing out paper Bitcoin at Coinbase or any exchange or any of these Wall Street giants, that's the moment that we win. And I think if every Bitcoiner who called themselves a Bitcoiner was in 100% self-custody, we'd be at $1 million right now. I truly believe that.
Maybe I think that's probably fundamentally that's correct. I remember, and this is, months ago, so the numbers are probably different, but I was doing just Grok searches. Hey, Grok, consider the ETFs alone. Forget about everyone else who's buying Bitcoin, but just take the ETFs alone, the Fidelities, the BlackRocks. If their customers continue to acquire Bitcoin in ETFs, how long will it take for the existing 3.5 million coins to be absorbed? And I think Grok returned a result like July 2028, at the latest January 2029. And there are a lot more buyers other than the ETFs. And of course, we know there's been a lot of retail selling. But I think the point remains. There will be a point in the near future where Bitcoin is not available because the buying pressure has purchased it all. And we don't want it in ETFs. Obviously, we want people to hold it, but you have to realize that that's the reality. There are a lot of boomers with money that want the security of an ETF. They're not going to hold a hardware wallet. But this game ends very soon, probably in the next 4 years, where the only Bitcoin you'll be able to get is if someone else pays you in Bitcoin or if you're able to mine it. I mean, think about the miners. Once we get to the point where there isn't much Bitcoin available, they're going to be making deals with the big institutions, with large countries, people who will pay over spot in order to get the Bitcoin. So I think that's the part that we haven't really prepared ourselves for. And I think it'll be kind of like a hockey stick. We're going to kind of be bouncing along at the market price. And then I think you'll start hearing news reports that, there's only X amount of Bitcoin available that's liquid. So the FOMO is going to come. And I think that's what we're waiting for. Wait till 2028, 2029, check back with me. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I think that because Bitcoin has a fixed supply and because there is relentless demand, we're going to hit a wall where you just won't be able to get it.
Yeah, Greer the Permable coming out.
I am, and I don't care either. I won't apologize for that. I think once you understand what Bitcoin is, the first thing you do is like, oh shit, everybody's going to want this, and then you try to get it.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Unfortunately, it just marries up with a lot of pain that's going to be coming our way. We're in a fractured society where UBI, Andrew Yang just tweeted about it again. Yep, see, told you AI is coming with the block news, like some of the stuff I know we're going to touch on today, right? Like this stuff's coming, and we are in a fractured. That's why I brought up the education thing earlier. We're in a society that's rapidly diverging, meaning CBDCs, UBI, and slavery, or you're going to go Bitcoin and freedom. It's going to be separation of, so you're going to be running the state curriculum and education, running on their paper fake currency, whatever it is, or you're going to be Bitcoin and freedom. You put altcoins in the CBDCs, UBI, it's all going to be over here on the state side, the slavery side, and you're going to have Bitcoin and freedom. And it's rapidly diverging right now. And I just don't think a lot of people see that. The information, how people are schooled, everything. And that's what's really pronounced if you're paying attention. And to go back to what we were saying a minute ago when I was cutting out, yeah, I mean, Greer nailed it. Like you can, the trade of Bitcoin, you buying Bitcoin or working or earning, that is the settlement. Every 10 minutes, that is the settlement of Bitcoin. That's the auditing. Bitcoin's an auditing machine, triple entry accounting system. That's what it is. And so like you have a system where there's a ledger that no one can mess with around the world. And you know exactly what's going on, and there's no rollbacks to the chain. That shenanigans is gone. And that's what humans have. We've never seen this before. And that's why I think it's so difficult for the average person to understand what's going on. They don't even understand that because the current system. So this goes back to what I started a second ago, what Greer was saying, dovetailing to that, which is this demographic shift over the next I say 10 to 20 years. So like 4 to 15 years, 4 to 10 years, where the younger generation takes power, that the older generation has gone out of the whole halls of power. A lot of their wealth has come down to the younger generations. This is change like we've never seen, maybe in 500 years, printing press or discovery of fire. Like that's why Bitcoiners talk like that, because humans have no idea what we're entering right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think I've got 3 young kids. I've got one on the way. I'm thinking a lot about like, how do I prepare them for this future? So actually, let's jump into this story. So Block, I think a lot of people probably saw this. So Block, Jack Dorsey's company, cut 40% of their workforce because of AI, and of course their stock surged. Other companies are going to do the same thing, recreate this. Job loss could get very, very ugly. I completely agree, and I think it makes me wonder, what is the world that we're walking into? The other thing, Gridded, we talked about Jason Lowery's tweet a week or so ago about people basically haven't priced in the fact that bots, and like all these AI bots that are being spun up, are going to begin to accumulate and transact in Bitcoin, because they can't verifiably and reliably do it with gold. It's obviously using dollars is incredibly slow for settlement. Greer, I'll let you take this one first, because I know you've had a lot of thoughts on AI and the implications. What's your take when you see this news?
Yeah, I mean, both of these are kind of like blackpilling things, right? I mean, what is the AI going to do but just remove white collar work, And then you look at Elon and the Optimus robots, and anything that someone can do, whether they're a surgeon or an HVAC or plumber, maybe a future world, a robot from Elon will be able to perform that same task. So, I think the disruption is real. I think some of it is hype, but I think some of it is really happening. And Block is just an example that you can run an efficient company with less people. I was looking at that post, and someone commented about other brands that have just thousands of workers. Think about Salesforce. Accenture, I think, is one they listed. It had almost 800,000 employees. A lot of white collar work is email related, and I think these email jobs are going to be, a big bulk of the ones that get removed. And we know this, it's because AI has made intelligence and expertise practically free. You can learn anything with AI if you give it enough time. So, I don't think the trope about humans with AI are going to replace AI, people that don't know AI. I think everybody is kind of going to get thrown into this, staring at the void situation where you have to figure out, okay, how do I provide value? So I don't think this is one that we want to fade. Yes, a lot of it's hype. I think we're going to see some of these companies go bust. There's a lot of reports that OpenAI, doesn't have the earnings to match their spending. And I think it's going to be like the .com boom, where you have these huge valuations and then they go bust and go nowhere. And a lot of it was on hype. But I think that there are going to be real winners. And unfortunately, it's going to be centralized. We'll probably have a few dominant AI companies. So, what do you do? I don't know. I'm ready to just go be a farmer. I think the Amish figured it out, and kudos to them. Because I think it's going to be a very difficult world to prove that you can contribute when there's a machine that can do it faster, better, cheaper. What's the ultimate end state here? And I don't know. I think with AI and bots and agents, I've seen a lot of that. Brahm from Bitcoin for Millennials, he put together a tutorial where you can create an agent, give it a Lightning wallet, and it can go perform tasks. So I think, this is the time to be exploring what is the AI Bitcoin integration look like. And for me, it's like, okay, maybe I can set up my own instance where I'm providing or my bot is providing some kind of service to another bot. People are going to figure this out. I think the scary part is if you're on the sidelines with no Bitcoin, and not only do people have more Bitcoin than you, but also the AI agents have more Bitcoin than you. This is the race, and, Saylor said famously at one of the conferences, we have until 2030. And I think that's probably right. We do probably have, just a few years until this whole cake gets baked, but the race is for Bitcoin. It's, AI can't create it. And so, what are you going to do? You have to do something. You can't just go into your job and expect to be able to be there. And so, it's soul searching. It's trying to figure out like, what am I good at? What can I do? What do I enjoy? I still believe that those things exist. But it's not something you can just phone in and ignore. Like, you have to take action, in my opinion.
I agree. I think Bitcoin is that if you don't know what to do, keep trying to figure it out and buy Bitcoin in the meantime.
Yeah.
Brandon, did you you throw up a screenshot here? Is this
yeah, this is just like, these were, I was on my timeline, right? And these were like the 2 back-to-back tweets. So this is just like the state of the market, right? You know what we're talking about, like completely opposite sides of the spectrum of like, you know, one person, you know, oh yeah, you know, somewhat prominent, you know, Twitter figures. If you
Brandon, you're cutting out again, man. Okay, I'm just going to talk over him. Hey, real quick, while we're waiting for Brandon to sync back up, we got I'm not even going to try saying this name. Brandon, you keep glitching, man. The Bitcoin way equals home of priceless Bitcoiners. Thank you for the kind words. And Brandon, are you back?
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
I might have to pop back out and come back in. But yeah, no, this is just like the state of the market, you know, like just completely like, you know, bullish on AI. And the next guy's is like, yeah, no, this is like totally moronic. Like, this is never going to happen. So this is just kind of like the state of Bitcoin. But we talked about this, you know, somewhat recently. I feel like it's one of those things where I do truly feel like the last couple of years have been a lost few years, in the sense of like, yeah, price was down obviously, but Bitcoin has been so focused on price because of Wall Street. There's like this tangential effect of people so focused on like, pretty much like, you know, like, I'm gonna wipe my hands of this. Trump's in here, you know, Wall Street's here, BlackRock. Like, I don't need to do anything anymore. And I'm not talking like necessarily even building on Bitcoin. I'm talking about like just the memes, just like the models, like building like fun, cool things like the AI agents. Like, where are the Bitcoiners? Like, how come a lot of this stuff, it hasn't been happening? Like, you know, years ago, you used to have people were like, just let's go build things, let's go do stuff. And now it seems like people have been very fractured, and the fun.
Brandon, I'm going to kick you out, man. You keep breaking up. Can you, why don't you try logging back in?
Because that sounded like a good thought. I was curious to hear the end of that.
No, Greer. Well, let's run with that. Well, first of all, I'd say if you're missing out on the memes, go follow the Bitcoin Way on X. We've got a wily Irish guy who puts together a lot of memes for us.
It's like nonstop. Rick has stolen probably like at least 20 of my memes, which I'm fine with.
Dude, you got to tell him to start giving you some credit, man.
No, I'm kidding. They're all open source. They're meant to be stolen. Hey, let me put on my tinfoil hat. And, you know, Brandon's asking where everybody is. And I would say that we're not seen as often because the algorithm changed. And the guy who's developing it, Nikita Beer, you know, he was very public about saying, every crypto account is going to be silenced or at least muted on X. And I think Bitcoin's probably lumped in with that for him. And so, you know, I think that the Bitcoiners are still here, but it's kind of like we lost the echo chamber that we had. And, you know, again, tinfoil hat, I don't know if that's true. But, you know, just from me anecdotally, like there were, you know, I could make a post and get hundreds of likes, sometimes thousands of likes. And I think that there are people that I used to watch that I have to go look for their account in order to find them. And that wasn't the case before. So I don't know, maybe I'm taking the easy way out, blaming the algorithm, but I think that everyone's still here. Not everyone, but a good number are still here, but we've just been silenced. You know, you can find a little bit of it on Noster and Primal.
I think that seems about right, man. I can't remember who it was. Just like a couple weeks ago, I thought of someone and I thought, I have not seen any of their content in months, maybe a year. And I went and looked him up. Yep, he's been posting, you know, like nothing had changed in his life, but I hadn't seen anything. Yeah. And I have a feeling you're right that there's something to be said about the algorithm. Fortunately, I do remember who it was. I'm not going to call him out by name. Something of a suit coiner, so it wasn't problematic for me that he'd been booted from my feed. I need Brandon to hop back in here because someone made a good point. He needed Starlink. Man, I tell you what, I've got a Starlink and it is nice. It's like my backup. And also I don't trust Elon Musk or Starlink at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to trust anybody today, and I think Elon has been kind of put forward as somebody who's for free speech. And so, we love everything he's doing. And we see the battle against him and the man, whether it's the Supreme Court or the judge that's not letting him get paid $1 trillion or whatever. But I feel like probably best to be skeptical of everybody who's in power, especially if they control AI platforms. And, I think Grok has done a lot better than some of the other ones at being maybe not woke. But at the same time, I think like reserve some caution. We don't really know if they're inviting us into this trap that shuts, and, we'll regret using the free speech that we use so wildly.
Yeah. I've been using Maple AI at your recommendation.
Nice.
And it's cool because you can pay with Bitcoin, you can set up an anonymous account, all that good stuff. And I think the challenge is, man, it's kind of like anything. Like with Starlink, it's the only option that I have for reliable backup anywhere, right? Like I was in Utah in the mountains a month ago, and I was fortunate at the time. I took my Starlink because I never know what Wi-Fi connectivity is going to be like out there. And I was fortunate that it ended up being okay. But if I hadn't, like, my hotspot wasn't going to do it for me. I was getting like 1 bar in the middle of the mountains, and having Starlink as a backup is incredibly useful. At the same time, I would be cautious as to, I would use it for live streams. I'd use it for, basic stuff, but I don't want to be sending much sensitive data through that. Obviously, I've got my VPN turned on and everything, but still, I just I don't trust it. Yeah, I got a message in the private chat here. It was from Brandon before about the tweet that he wanted to share. I don't know, Greer, you have any other comments on AI or Starlink or anything?
AI, goodness. I mean, the one thing that I've experienced is that it moves so fast, and I'll be spending time using one platform, and then I'll see a post from someone who tested out something new, and now all of a sudden I'm on that one. And I feel like it's been a nonstop game of whack-a-mole. So, the one thing that's been difficult is just trying to maintain a consistent workflow. I spend more time experimenting and exploring than anything else. But I think part of that is just because I want to make sure that I'm on the cutting edge. What is the latest capability and how can I incorporate it? And this is specific to marketing and creative and that type of work. But, the tools have just gotten so good. They've essentially like one-shotted entire industries. Google has an experimental tool called Pomeli. And if you ever worked in photo shoots, like this does a pretty dang good job of doing everything from like model photography, product photography. And, like what AI is capable of doing is pretty enormous, And I know some people say it's just math. These language models they're not all they're cooked up to be. They don't think for themselves. They just output results. And I get that. I think it's important to be skeptical, but I also think on the other hand, you have to embrace it because it is only going to be more, more used, more prevalent, more ubiquitous. So I don't know. I think maybe do it out of fear and then try to learn what the tools offer.
That's kind of how I feel. So I ordered a Mac Mini because I want to start at the very least, just to experiment with all of this stuff. I'm going to be very cautious as to how I use it and consider, what do I give it access to? Nothing with any sensitive information, for so many reasons. But I think it's one of those things I don't want to fall behind on. Like, right, I found Bitcoin relatively late compared to like the early OGs, the guys who are whales now. And I don't want to look back on AI and say, oh, I'd been hearing about this for a while and I just never looked into it. Like, I want to start figuring it out and seeing how I can make use of it. But I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess, as to how I'm going to leverage it and how useful it's going to be. Brandon, we need to get you Starlink, brother.
Great comment. Yeah, we do. We absolutely do.
No, I think your comments were well received though on Jack's announcement. And one of the other stories here I wanted to cover, guys, because I think this is again, like we want to hang on, let me get on stage. We want to make sure that we're when we talk about price, when we talk about Wall Street coming in, it's never because we think the price is of immediate importance today. It does need to go up over the long haul for it to be a store of value, because inflation is going to eat at you. So if you buy the store of value argument, then it doesn't work if the price doesn't continue to appreciate over time. But I think we're still very early. The other thing that we obviously, when we talk about banks adopting Bitcoin and Citi, is the news story of the day. Is it's not that we are so excited that banks are here. However, this is signal. Like, to me, what's always interesting is you've got people who are so skeptical of Bitcoin, and it's like, okay, listen, I'm just your, brother-in-law, I'm just your cousin, whatever. Yeah, be skeptical of me. I'm just some guy. Larry Fink is talking about Bitcoin, offering Bitcoin, paper Bitcoin products. Citi, the third largest bank in America, $2.5 trillion in assets, is saying that we're making Bitcoin bankable. It's not that I think it's important that Citi's here. It was inevitable. But what's important is that that should be some sort of signal to the normies in your life. So if you think it's difficult to orange pill, we were talking about this before. If you think it's difficult to orange pill the normies in your life in a bear market, just tell them, who's building on Bitcoin in the bear market? Citi. That's who. Like this to me should be enough to get anyone to wake up and pay attention. And yet we don't often see that. I'd be curious, Brandon, if you have any thoughts on Citi.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, this is the signal in all the noise. They're building the bear market. Ironically, of course, the big guys are always building the bear market, and whether they're the ones that created it or not, that's kind of the point. And that's the true signal. And this is inevitable. Strategy conference is going on right now. All that, we see a lot of announcements, a lot of different things going on. So again, it's inevitable. When you have the hardest money humans have ever discovered, people are going to want it. They don't understand the dollar. Most people don't understand the dollar. That's why we're in this position we're in now. So, again, you have to have empathy. And I know a lot of us Bitcoiners are like, oh, how come no one sees it? Like you said, people didn't see it when we're sitting at the dinner table for years, yelling at people, our family members. But now Larry Fink's here. Donald Trump says, yeah, we're going to be Bitcoin. And now people still don't get it. So you're kind of like, okay, if you don't believe me, little guy, and you don't believe the biggest guys in the world, then, where are we at right now? So again, it's inevitable.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think the odds of Citibank letting you transfer your Bitcoin in your account to your own hardware wallet? I'd say it's probably pretty low. I'll bet once you have Bitcoin in your account at Citi, they want you to keep it there.
Yeah, I mean, certainly they'd want you to. I don't know. So someone said that a Fidelity allows in-kind Bitcoin transfer to a cold wallet.
I think they do for institutional. I could be wrong, but I don't think that if you have a couple shares of FTB,
I think you might be right.
TC, I think you got to be like a whale.
I know we were talking about that. What was it? Someone was applying for, maybe it was BlackRock, applying to allow for in-kind redemptions, but it was only at the institutional level. So I don't know if maybe that's the story. But I don't know. But like, what's their? I guess what do they charge? Like, do they charge like transaction fees or something, like some sort of withdrawal fee? Like, how do they make their money? They don't want you to withdraw to self-custody at least long term, or at least in the short term rather, because they lose that. It's not their asset that they're holding anymore. And I assume they're going to have some sort of I don't know really what their fee plan is, but it's kind of like your financial advisor might reluctantly tell you, allocate 1%, 2%, 3% to Bitcoin, but they want you to buy the ETFs, and then they want you to sell them at the top so they can, earn commission. Like it's not really a very authentic conviction that I think a lot of these players have, at least not in the way that they're going to advise their clients.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, Citibank wants to offer debt against your Bitcoin. They want to issue credit and then pay you in fiat. And that's why they want your product. That's why they want your Bitcoin. And I think also you would say that they want to be more like the crypto companies like Coinbase. They want to be an asset manager, and you have, like with the Clarity Act, you have two sides. You have the asset managers and then you have the banks. And what we're seeing is them trying to decide on, okay, who gets to deliver the yield? Is there no yield? If the crypto companies offer yield, then no one will use a bank anymore. And so I think what you're seeing is these banks are waking up and they're saying, well, we need to be asset managers as well as credit issuers. Otherwise, they don't survive. Bitcoin was meant to replace the banks. And so I would have loved that everybody in the world, go on, what's the website? It's satoshis.com. And you can see how many Satoshis, how many sats every person on earth can buy. And it's like 220,000. It's like $250. If everybody in the world, out of 21 million, like that, or out of what remains, that's what everybody in the world can afford. It's like $200 worth of Bitcoin.
That's great.
And that was the idea. Like, people get Bitcoin, not the banks, not the countries, not the institutions. So, it's not what was designed. And I think, there's still time, but it's a shame, because I think the volatility scares away, Joe Schmo down the street. He doesn't want to mess with it.
Yeah, and in a world where most people can't afford a $600 emergency expense, I don't think accumulating $250 worth of Bitcoin is probably likely. So, hey, Brian Goodson, who had shared that Fidelity in kind transfer, he said, sorry, you're wrong, Greer. You're wrong, you idiot. It's for the plebs as well. So it's not just institutions.
I was wrong too.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good to know. If you've got the Fidelity ETF, I just recommend, if they let you withdraw to cold storage, do that. Why keep it at Fidelity?
Yeah, that's amazing. I had not heard that. I know there was talks about that over the last few years, but then I thought I had heard it was just for institutional stuff. And interesting. That'd be huge. Well, anyway, I think it goes back to, again, like, this is, I'm sorry. I just go back to the demographic shift. The more I've thought about this for 10 years, and you realize what's going on. You talk to OGs, you talk to the Pierre Richards in 2012. He's like, yeah, people are going to get this overnight. And then cut scene 14 years later, and he's like, yeah, still, like, we have 0.1% adoption. Like, look at RFK. Like, look at the health stuff. I'm not going to lie. Like, I was a professional athlete. Like, I take care of my body. I put very little, substances that are not natural from, in my body for 20 years. Like, I'm very careful with what I do. And even the RFK stuff, like him changing the health stuff, I even not get cringe. It's not cringy, but I'm kind of like, ooh, this is interesting. Like, going to see how society reacts to that. And this is coming from someone who is, I don't know, very base, quote unquote, takes care of his body, like, understands what's actually happening for a long time, waiting for society to come to this. But this goes back to my theory of, we are so far off the tracks. The train is 100 miles off the tracks, that it's when you have these huge movements of like, well, we're just canceling all of the vaccine schedule, or we're just canceling all this stuff and reverting all the way back to nature, like boom, and just snapping back. Society can't take it. Cannot take it. And this is where the Max Payne is going to rip society back toward the truth, meaning black swan events, wars, grid blackouts, whatever it is. These things, I'm sorry, they're absolutely coming 100% without a shadow of a doubt. Otherwise, it'll be 150 years from now that the time it's taken for us to come back to come 100 miles off the tracks. It's not going to be 100 years to like, oh, we're going to slowly get back to this Bitcoin path and like freedom and sovereignty. It's not. It's like what Greer said. It's going to be 4 years, 8 years, 10 years. There's going to be this gradually and then suddenly this snapping back. But it is like this, like the society has a very hard time taking it. And to everything we're saying, why don't people get orange pilled? What's actually happening? Most people in the West, their bank account still works. They don't care. They do not care. And they've been fudded by nation states, and everyone from endless, money printing has fudded people against Bitcoin for 17 straight years. And people are taught to conform, comply, obey from the government run school system, which we pay with our property taxes and inflation to subsidize the re-education camps inside the government run school system. Well, how the hell are you going to fight against that? You can't out-educate the state. It's impossible unless mass casualties happen. And that's where we're headed. And it's whether it's kinetic or whether it's like, I'm in CBDC's UBI and I'm in a AI cage. I'm 100% convinced no one can talk me off that ledge.
Man, that's a lot of great news you just dumped on us.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm sorry guys. Like, it's just it's to a point of like, this is me being frustrated of like, I was very political as a kid, and you could see the problems as a 13-year-old in 2000, the Bush Gore election. You could see them all the way up till now, 26 years later, as I'm a 38-year-old man, and you just look at it and you're like, what in the literal hell is going on? How is this so unobvious to the average person walking around? But you have to resign yourself to the fact that like, people don't care. They're generally sheep. And we just go along with what the next person is doing. And until you're ripped out of that comfort state, and that's, to me, I'm looking for that thing. What's going to rip people out of their comfort state? Because again, we can lead horses to water. We can't make them drink.
Yeah. And I think that's where like my thesis has always been max pain.
Yep.
Because I like the way I found Bitcoin was I just kind of tripped into it. Honestly, I decided I was going to go learn about crypto because I just heard enough about it. I don't think most people even take that step. Like, hey, I just need to be curious about this thing. And I was really lucky to trip into some people like Lynn Alden, Preston Pish, you know, his podcast, and really start to get some like relatively high signal content early on. And so as I was trying to kind of go down these two paths simultaneously that I thought were the same, it was very easy to part ways with the blockchain, NFT, crypto crowd and start to focus on sound money. But I think most people, unless you put them in a position where they are just like forced to learn about this, they're not going to do it until their current circumstance becomes untenable.
I will say, sorry, Greer. I'm gonna jump in really quick because I know I'm sounding like doomerish in a way, but this is just the natural course of life. I do want to point out that I'm extremely hopeful. I do share Greer's sentiment of like, you know, the next, you know, decade or so, whatever it is, it's going to be gradually and suddenly things are going to change. Because look at, if you would have told me 25 years ago where society was today and the amount of enlightenment or like truth and like, you know, the Epstein files, like some of them at least getting released. If you would have told me that I would have laughed you out of the room, completely laughed you out of the room. So where we are today, and Elon Musk, wherever you think of him, it doesn't matter. The fact that the richest guy in the world is talking about a lot of things that we talk about, that is signal right there. And so society is directionally moving the right way. The sovereign individual is playing out, not playing out maybe as fast as I would like or as fast as we'd like. But I want to say that because I am very hopeful. It's just, it sucks because this is the uncensored talk we had where we sat there off screen and we were just like, we don't want people around us to be in pain. You know, it's like, I don't want people being in pain. You can see it coming. The train is coming and you're just like, get off the tracks. And I don't know. So sorry, I had to jump in there.
I think the biggest instructor is going to be, maybe it'll be war, famine, that type of thing that you described, Brandon. Total collapse of society, unemployment, you know, just the worst possible things that could happen to humanity. Maybe that's how we learn. Or I think an alternative is that Bitcoin does really well. And the people who have Bitcoin are still able to live a lifestyle that they're used to. You know, they can purchase food, they can, you know, live in a house, drive a car, send their kids, you know, to do activities, go on vacations, and they're not affected by the inflation. They wouldn't have to take the UBI. They don't have to use the, you know, the government stablecoin, whatever it is, at some Tether product or USD Circle. Like, I think that's what we'll teach people. It's that there's a group of people that are out there, they post stuff on the internet, and they don't live the way we do. What makes them different? And then you find out, oh, they actually bought Bitcoin. They saved in Bitcoin. They transact in Bitcoin, and they're not really under the same effect that we are. To me, that would be probably realistic, but I mean, also painful, because at that point, you know, Bitcoin might be out of reach, or at least a substantial amount. But even if that's the case, I mean, if you're in the West, especially in America, I think you're positioned well, you know, to catch up for lost time. You know, you can still stack sats, you know, weekly. And I think, you know, buying $20 a week or whatever, $100 a week, whatever you can afford, depending on who you are, you know, that's probably the way out of this and the best way to prepare yourself. But I think seeing the way Bitcoiners live is going to be the most powerful teacher. You know, I mean, humans, we love to compare ourselves. You know, how are they doing compared to me? And you know, hopefully it's not the famine, the war, the total collapse of society, and it's just something that's more natural. You know, those people have things I don't have. What did they get? How do they do it? And maybe that leads to some of the curiosity.
Yeah. What's been so confounding for me is the fact that like the number of people who I've talked to about Bitcoin, and admittedly early on in my journey, I was probably very bad about explaining it. Even today, I don't exactly know what the recipe is, but it's still, I just can't wrap my head around this. Someone that, you know, love, trust is saying, hey guys, this thing is real. Like there is merit to this. I've studied it. And you're not, the response isn't, well, you know, I'll put in $5 a week. I'll just kind of, you know, until I can get around to learning, maybe, you know, give me a book I could read. I'll just put in a few dollars. No one even wants to do that. I'm like,
I want 5% of the life raft.
Like,
just give me the ore. That's it.
The biggest lesson that Bitcoin has taught me, two big lessons. One is I was wrong about almost everything before I found Bitcoin. And number two is the people who I thought trusted me do not trust me on the level that I thought. Like I would have sworn so many people in my life were like, yeah, Michael's a reliable, trustworthy guy. If he says something, I'm going to take it seriously. Nope, not the case. Doesn't happen. So
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
I think everyone's on their own journey. You know, you learn based on what your circumstances are, and because we're all different, those are all different. So, you know, I mean, when I got in, I remember waking up at 3 a.m. and the price went from 42 to 48 or 52 to 56. And it was like the price escaping that had me panicked. I probably didn't sleep well for like maybe the first 6 months I was in Bitcoin, just because I was chasing it, you know?
That's a good problem to have.
And I don't know anybody else. I haven't met anyone else that shared that, you know. There are a lot of people who came in when I did because of Robinhood, you know, and Robinhood wouldn't let you hit the buy button on GameStop or something. And that really, I remember that making me really upset. And then I had a buddy that turned me on to Bitcoin because of that. But, you know, I think we're all on our own journey, you know, and you can find people that'll help you, but ultimately it's up to you.
I love it. Brian Goodson says he's a call scheduled with one of our advisors today. And so I would like to very quickly invite anyone else, scan this QR code on the screen. I would encourage everyone, schedule 30 minutes. It's free. Talk with our team. How do you take self-custody, protect your data, online privacy? We've got Plan B residency options. We had a webinar last night. We had 200 questions pour in. We had 1,100 registrations for it. And we've got people who are getting out of their current tyrannical jurisdiction, or at least preparing for the day that might come. So please scan the QR code. We would love to talk with you and share how it is that we can help. So Brian, good for you. Excited you get to talk with our team. I was a client before I started working with the team, and I have nothing but amazing things to say about the work that they do. Let's see. It's amazing to hear what can be talked about with Bitcoin and all it can fix. Endless conversations. The rabbit hole is real. Bitcoin economy is real. Completely agree with that. Guys, what else do you want to talk about? We've got some other stories. I don't know if I should have brought. Oh yeah, go on.
No, I was gonna say, I think that's a great comment. I didn't see who left that comment, but it's Bitcoin's a 4-letter word, and this is why I think saying to people study Bitcoin is so important. You know, getting Bitcoin is important in the sense of like, now you got skin in the game, and from that perspective of like, okay, hopefully then they will go learn. Because, you know, like I think Greer was saying earlier, like a lot of people come in for number go up, but then you realize, oh, this is freedom go up. You know, like number go up becomes the last thing you think about in Bitcoin. And that's like this weird chasm that humanity has to cross and humans have to cross, going back to this stay humble, you know, drop the ego, lower the ego, raise your humility. That's all Bitcoin is. Like I found, like I was giving my story a little bit earlier, I was in gold and silver real estate for a number of years after I left Michigan State. And then I found Bitcoin, and I had to be humble in the sense of, wait, gold and silver money for thousands of years, the best thing we had, but I was open to something else being new, just like I am now. If something comes along that's better than Bitcoin, an alien life form brings some new element from the universe we never knew, and then there's, like, I'm open to it. Like, you know, it's not, Bitcoiners are very open-minded, hence why we're here, and it's opposite of what someone thinks. And so studying Bitcoin is so incredibly important, but there's so many things. There's a couple big things that I've changed my mind on because of Bitcoin just over the course of the last 10 years, but it makes you study things you've never studied before or never thought of, or like you said, Michael, makes you think or understand that a lot of things were wrong. You cannot see a lot of the problems from the current system, from the US dollar, from the Titanic. You can't until you get off on the life raft, until you get off on a separate monetary protocol that is completely separate from all the government currencies of the world, can you only then see the ship is going down. It is impossible. We have gone through this journey. You can't do it. It's like going to Buds, like going through Hell Week. Like you're not going to get along with Jocko Willink, like someone who's gone through Buds with him. You know, those guys have a bond that they now have and they share together. It's going through that door, that, you know, the kill door. Like you got to go through this narrow gate in order to get to the other side, and you got to put in the work. So studying Bitcoin is so paramount because it's a 4-letter word saying Bitcoin, because it's what the normies think Bitcoin means is everything opposite of what it actually is. And as a Bitcoin on the other side, you see it and you're like, man, if you could just see the world that opens up to you when you understand Bitcoin and you remove yourself from this red-blue paradigm and the US dollar and the military industrial complex, all this stuff. So anyway, a great comment.
One of the most jarring things that I say to people when I'm talking to them about Bitcoin is I do not want more dollars, because most people are so set on like the lens through which they view Bitcoin initially is as a potentially they're skeptical, but as a means to potentially accumulate more dollars. And my point is always, I do not want more dollars. I want to get rid of any dollars I have, and I want more Bitcoin in the future. And until, to your point, Brandon, you've gone on this journey of understanding what I mean by that, why it's so important. It's like, hang on, like you want to be poorer, and it's like, no, I want better money. I want less of the shit money, and I want more of the good money. It's but it's such a hard, like the switch has been flipped for me. And if you're talking to someone where it hasn't been, they haven't woken up to this, it becomes so much harder. We've got a handful of comments here. Elaine Lowell, we all realize public school education in the mainstream media was stronger than the trust we thought our friends should give us. Amen to that. We got school's not a place for smart people. well said.
Drones.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Greer, Shivan Garlic, I slept poorly in 2025 for the same reason, thinking the price was going to run away from me. It turned out not to be a problem. Thanks.
Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. I mean, that's
a gift.
I'll never forget that feeling. But yeah, I mean, I think you have to realize Bitcoin dumps. It just does. And every cycle, whatever, every period, there's always something that causes it, and the last several have been like fraud, like FTX, that was fraud. Three Arrows Capital, Celsius, BlockFi, all those companies were over leveraged. Like Bitcoin is a free market, but it doesn't mean that participants are fair or good or moral. So I think a lot of Bitcoin's price is it's based on the fact that we're humans. It's not just human psychology that drives the price up or down, but it's also people doing things that are immoral, illegal, manipulative. And to me, it's like, Bitcoin should be much higher if it were not for imperfect people doing things that, they live to regret, or the community lives to regret. I think I think it's just great that we have another chance to stack below 100. I was certain that we were going higher, and it's fine. It's not where I want it to be, but when I'm buying Bitcoin, I would much rather buy it at 65 than I would at 120.
So you're a big fan of Jane Street right now? You appreciate the
yeah.
put in for you?
I mean,
a Jane Street hat, Greer. You need to make.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah. They're the reason I have the having fun staying poor hat.
Whole collection.
Yeah, I mean, that's another great example. We still are, whether that's true or not, or what impact. I mean, it looks like that played a role, and we don't maybe have all the details today, but it looks pretty significant. And, there were also calls in October about Binance and Wintermute and their stablecoin depegging and, clearing out all the leverage. People are going to have to learn those lessons again. As soon as we put in a low, then the longs pile on. And I think, if you're playing with leverage, unless you're Jane Street or one of these big players, like you're probably not going to come out on top. And unfortunately, the big guys, the ones with all the resources and all the power and all the political clearance, those are the guys that always win. But again, I don't think they will forever. I think we're just living through this, really unusual time where Bitcoin's not fully adopted. And, like we said, there's like 150 million people that own it out of 6 or 7 or 8 billion, whatever number Earth has, who knows?
Absolutely.
And a lot of those people don't even know what they own. Like a lot of those people own Bitcoin, like you said, Greer. A lot of people get in through Robinhood, they're getting through Coinbase or whatever, and they're just coming in, or they still don't understand what they own or whatever it is. So they got lettuce hands, they got whatever. So this is just part of it, and this is the free market, like you said as well. Of there's no bailouts. So we deal with the punches right in the face. There's no someone coming into the FTX. Big people are going to blow themselves up too on this, and that's going back to the beginning of this, the auditing of Bitcoin. There is an ability to audit. So when there are bank runs, there are things that are happening in the system where people are playing shenanigans or playing funny games, that stuff gets found out eventually. And that's what cleans up the system and creates a better incentivized system in the sense of you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. Because as someone big goes down, which this is part of this fourth turning, like the chaos, everything we've been talking about, there's going to be a big player or two, maybe a nation state. There's going to be some people that go down because they're doing dumb things with Bitcoin, and then people learn. Then you have society starts learning and says, you know what? Maybe I should F around less with this and just use it to my advantage. You know, if you can't beat it, join it and join the network instead of trying to fight the network. So that's what we're going to see here too. And people, it's just fascinating. Like this question for you guys, I want to say this earlier. Why do you guys think like people are so all over AI? Like Elon was, obviously he's pumping Grok. He has his own product, right? But he has a bunch of Bitcoin. So why hasn't he been pumping Bitcoin? Like, why do people jump all over like AI and just accept it as this thing all of a sudden, this centralized technology, but yet this decentralized open source technology, Bitcoin, whoa. You don't see it anywhere, right? Like government won't talk about it. No one talks about it. To me, there's signal in all that noise, but I would love your guys' thoughts.
I haven't thought about it hard. I have an initial reaction, and that is that AI is inevitable, and there's nothing that any regulator is going to do to stop it, but it also doesn't threaten the powers that be in the fundamental way that Bitcoin does. If I think Elon, I'm not like an Elon fan, like I'm not a fanboy, but to the extent that he wanted to talk about Bitcoin, and he wanted, I think even Saylor, someone like that who's buying tons of Bitcoin, is very cautious with his words. He's in a high profile position. He's under the microscope of the regulators, right? And so even if he wanted to say all of the things we say about self-sovereignty, self-custody, it might be difficult for him to remain alive, it may, worst case, and, best case to not come under that scrutiny and face, massive consequences for it. So that tends to be my base case.
I think you're right. I think, look at AI and just take it to the worst possible extreme. AI is going to enslave humanity. So, of course, they're pushing it on us. Bitcoin will free humanity. So, of course, they're not going to talk about it. Bingo. And I'm putting that, of course, I'm oversimplifying and I'm being hyperbolic on purpose. But I think even if you were to tone that down, like AI is going to displace a lot of people, and it will centralize power. It will be used in surveillance. We talked this morning about how the Pentagon wants to be able to use Claude to, mass surveil Americans and have it power its autonomous weapons. So like AI gives power to the elite, to the people who control it, and Bitcoin sets people free from all of that control. So they're two competing forces, and we talk about how they might be integrated, AI and Bitcoin. I think that could be interesting. But to me, that's why you're getting so much hype around AI. It's because it's manufactured. Some of the use cases are real, some of them are not. But the people who are very wealthy get more control over the rest of us. I mean, that to me, there's no other simpler way to say it. And I think the goal here is just get more people understanding Bitcoin, why it was created, what purpose it serves, and then how much better life is when you control your own private keys. To me, it's the simplest thing, it's the dumbest thing, it's the hardest thing. But like having your own money that can't be, taken from you or inflated away or confiscated or can't even be stopped. I could send you both a transaction right now and it would arrive instantly and doesn't have to go through a bank. Like that's the real threat to the system that exists.
Yeah. The higher up the TradFi ladder you are, the more compromised and dependent on that system you become. And you've got to remember that someone like Elon, it's not like when he bought, what did he buy Twitter for? Like 44 billion. 40 billion. Yeah. He didn't just write a $44 billion check out of his own account, right? Like he's got VCs, he's got, there's private equity, not necessarily
shares.
Yep. And those people have a vested interest in Bitcoin not being the next thing, because if they don't have loose money, they can't gamble on 20 companies and have, all but one of them fail and still succeed. Like that it's fiat money that enables their entire business model.
100%. Wait, so okay. So I 100%, like, I think you guys both nailed it. Like, that's exactly what my thought is, right? Like, that's a signal in all the noise. Like, what they're not saying is just as much. But going back to this question of when Bitcoin adoption or like hyper Bitcoinization or the world, using Bitcoin as the accounting structure of the earth, at what point or like how does that happen? That's where you go back to this, like Max Payne, whatever, because if you have the entrenched structure, and again, maybe it's the demographic cliff, maybe it's the older generations, they're like, yeah, I don't care. I made money in the fiat world. So like, I don't care. Cause like as it stands, clearly, like we said, Elon or Saylor can't even say all the things he wants to say. Well, that doesn't leave us in a great place. We get to say stuff, but we don't have as much sway as some of these other guys do. Right. So at what point is there a saturation point? Is there this tipping point of like, no. Like we want the truth. And to me, that's where I go back to the demographic shift. Like I think the demographic shift, this fourth turning, whatever, it's way bigger than I think any of us even give credit. And I think that's this next decade or two that plays out where you can't come back from that. We're not, the toothpaste out of the tube, and you can't put it back in the tube.
Yeah. I don't have a thesis on the timeline. I think there becomes a moment when Elon or whoever is freed to talk about Bitcoin, because it's ubiquitous. And there's like I think there's still hope that we can delay it, that at least the powers that be today can continue benefiting from the fiat system, at least until they die. And then, maybe Bitcoin, takes over, but at least they got to have their fun in the fiat system until then. So I think it could be several years, but at some point you're right, it becomes undeniable. If Bitcoin goes to $1 million, Elon's not going to not tweet about it. I think it's
right.
Right. So
I think that's a good point. I think how we get there is through demonstration, and we talk about Cash App and turning on Bitcoin payments for 4 million retailers around the US. To me, the knock-on effects of that, those are companies who accept Bitcoin, who store Bitcoin, who see their bottom line increase because they saved in Bitcoin and allowed people to spend it. So multiply that out, that has exponential growth opportunity. And I think, Brandon, what you're saying is true also. Like my kids are Bitcoiners. They all have Bitcoin. None of them have a bank account. They all use Cash App and they use, whatever. They have Moon Wallet and Blue Wallet. And they use, they have Bitcoin. They're saving in Bitcoin. They're not spending it yet because they're kids. But to me, like the old way is going to die out with the boomers. And I think there's some great boomer Bitcoiners. But I think if you're looking at a generational thing, that's where the shift happens. The shift happens when people have a better example to use and they have a preference. And when Bitcoin becomes the preference because it's so much easier and there's no friction, I think it happens naturally. I think that we're seeing all the banks and everyone else incorporate it because they know they have to. And they have to get a leg up on the next generations that are going to prefer digital banking, digital payments. And then when you think about stable coins and whatever those look like, you're going to have a clear alternative to whatever that monstrous system is compared to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin's going to win in that one too. You're going to want to transact in Bitcoin instead of using a stable coin. I think the tough part is we just have to wait for that to be fully realized. I hate when people say we're so early because I don't want it to be early. But if I'm being realistic, like we're pretty dang early.
I agree. All right, guys, I think that's a good place to wrap. I'll throw up 2 more comments. We've got beautiful caps. Thank you. And just as a reminder, this is my bird flip cap. So if you missed the beginning, I need to show. So, hey, Greer, tell people where they can find this stuff.
Birdflip.xyz. You can pay in cash or you can pay in Bitcoin.
Beautiful.
It's a little clunky paying in Bitcoin, but it works. And low OPSEC hats, shirts. We just launched with Mana Wallet last week, and Club Orange now has a selection of products. So, if you're going to a Bitcoin conference, it's great to wear a Bitcoin hat. And we've got some that are offensive and others that are not.
And last comment, these live podcasts.
It's the most popular. Everybody loves the classic bird flip middle finger.
I love that, and so do I, man. These live podcasts are great. They will go down as the new history books. Thank you for that. Now, Brandon, why don't you give a send off? Tell people where they can find you and watch your pod.
Yeah, the podcast is at Brandon_Gentili. My YouTube channel is just, the channel is my name as well, Brandon Gentili. And then you can find me on that handle as well, Brandon_Gentili at Noster, Twitter, everywhere else. So just always a blast coming on with you guys. And we can only hope that these are the history books of the future. I know, appreciate you guys so much.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
And everyone joining.
Yeah, and Greer, thanks for filling in for Tony today. For everyone who joined, really appreciate you being here. Thanks for all the comments. Always fun for us to get to bat around your comments, your questions, ideas. And we will be back same time, same place on Monday. So cheers, guys.
Thanks. See you guys. Thanks, guys.